Now, when you read the topic of what I'm talking about today, you may have thought that I was going to be a little controversial, and you are absolutely right. I did a show recently where the host described me as a contrarian thinker in a positive way because of how I was talking about positive thinking and other areas of self-development. And I'm really comfortable with that because I promise you my work is not about re-hacking and copying or repeating other people's work. I always want to try to share something new that I think will move me and you further ahead on our life's journey. And I also want to prove that there's a basis to what I'm saying. It's not just my opinion. So super excited to be talking about positive thinking today because positive thinking for a long time has been held up as the absolute no-fail way to success and happiness. Now, ironically, it was when I was a cancer patient just before, well, the inspiration really in many ways for my first book, Secrets of Cancer Survivors. But one of the first things people said to me when they learned of my diagnosis was, think positive. And it felt pretty horrible and also felt really ineffective because if you are feeling scared and worried and devastated, being told to think positive is actually really, really difficult because you can't be negative and positive at the same time. You have to move from a scared state to get into a positive state. But that's not really what I'm talking about today. But it was the first time it struck me on a personal level that someone very healthy, telling me when I had aggressive cancer that I should think positive. It felt well-meaning, but it wasn't really something that was A, going to help me, or B, build a relationship, a stronger relationship with that person. Because then I felt that if I opened up and was vulnerable about how scared I was, I would get shut down with, oh, you should be thinking positive. So that started my wondering. And in fact, when I was researching the secrets of cancer survivors, because I wanted to know how cancer survivors thought, not what they were eating or what they were told to do, what kept popping up was I was looking for thinking patterns, but all the cancer survivors talked about how they were feeling and how they managed those feelings to move forwards. And without knowing it, all the work I did and the thinking and reflecting and testing and trying would later result into my latest book, Feeling Forwards, because in my second book as well, when I explored similar things but with regard to children, how they thought, it became clear to me that your emotions will actually have much more impact on whether or not you can get to where you want to go than your thoughts. Okay, I hear you say, that sounds all very well, but I have seen hundreds and hundreds of books about positive thinking in bookshops. I've got 5 books on my shelf that say the same thing, and I know lots of other people that really, really believe in the positive thinking movement. Okay, I hear you, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't think positively, but I'm just putting a slightly different spin on it and saying, if you want to have a positive approach, if you want to generate a life full of hope and excitement and confidence, it has to include the feelings. And in my opinion, using feeling forwards, the feelings actually come first. But that's enough about my experience and my opinion. Let me share a scientific experiment which I think really delightfully illustrates exactly what I'm talking about. So there was an experiment involving, and as usual, students. This time it was students from MIT, 2 groups of students. And as usual, they were also not really told the point of the experiment, but they arrived at the center ready for this experience, and they were divided into 2 groups. And one group was dressed up as pilots in pilot uniforms, and the other group just stayed in their regular clothes. And the group that were dressed as pilots, they were encouraged to get into a flight simulator, make themselves familiar with it, and pretend, make believe if you like, just like childhood make believe that they were actually flying the plane and they really were pilots. Now, before all of this started, the students had undergone a range of tests, including an eye test. And when they were in the cockpit, the students in the pilot's uniform, and then after they had their experience, then each student who was in their regular clothes Everyone did the same thing when they got in the cockpit under instructions from the organisers of the experiment. They were told to sit there, feel as though they were flying the plane, look out the window of the plane, and when they saw another plane flying past, which was visible in the simulator, they were to read out the numbers and letters on the side of the plane. So the two groups did this experiment and did it one by one, and then they looked at the results. And the results were kind of what they were expecting, but they were more extreme than they were expecting. Because really what it was is seeing whether or not the students who were dressed as pilots, and we all know pilots have to have great eyesight, looked as though whether or not the students that were playing make-believe as being pilots would have a better result, get a better score on looking and reading out the numbers and letters on the side, the serial number on the side of the planes that flew past. Well, the difference was so extreme between the group that were dressed as pilots and encouraged to make believe, and the group that in their regular clothes that were just encouraged to follow instructions, that the organisers were a bit concerned. So they got the students in their regular clothes into a group away from the other pilot group and said to them, guys, I think you can do better. I think, some of you aren't seeing all the serial numbers on the planes. We really think you can do better than this. And they were given a positive thinking pep talk in effect. And then they were retested. And the results varied hardly at all. And certainly they never got close to the results that were achieved by the pilots, the students dressed as pilots who felt they were pilots. Such a lovely illustration of the impact of how emotions affect not only our thoughts, but can even change our physiology. I mean, if someone stopped you in the street and said, do you know if you dress up as a pilot, your eyesight would improve? You would say, come on, get out of here. So I love this, and there's one of many other experiments and stories in my book, Feeling Forwards, and in my work, but it's all about how you feel that will determine where you want to go. Okay, so let's put this into practice. So how can we use some principles from this experiment and apply them into your everyday life? Well, the first thing is that what happened to those students dressed as pilots is they completely immersed themselves into the experience of being a pilot. And I like to draw a lot of parallels between entrepreneurs who want to start a new project or build a business, or anyone with a big dream, and athletes. Because the wonderful thing about athletes is they sleep, train, eat, think like they've won a race, like they're a champion, way before they actually achieve that success. And by its very nature, they understand that everything has to be in alignment. Whereas entrepreneurs sometimes come to me and say, well, yeah, look, I'm really amazing at building my product, but I'll leave the marketing to someone else, or I'll worry about that later, or my finances are in a mess, but I will worry about that when my app or my product is successful. It's like, well, no, if you want to immerse yourself in being the person who has the life you want, it has to enter into every aspect of your life, just as if you're a ballerina or a football player or someone that understands that you need to immerse yourself physically, emotionally, mentally into that place where you want to be before it actually happens. The second thing is to really notice what you are noticing. So if you're noticing, you've got two choices. At any point in time, we can focus on what is working for us or what isn't working for us. And the same thing is, I remember many years ago when I was a lawyer, someone came to me and said they were thinking of being a barrister. And I said, oh, I've heard, actually someone said that, things weren't going so well at the bar recently. And they said, no, I'm going to be fine. And then I spoke to someone far more experienced and far wiser who was already at the bar. And they said, well, you can look at everything that's not going well at the bar at the moment, or you can say, and the economy, or you can say, wow, what a great time to join the bar because there are less people joining right now, so there's going to be more opportunities for me. So when you're looking at a new project you want to start, or the one big thing you want to get rid of, what is it you're focusing on? Are you focusing on what is working for you, or what isn't working for you? Because whatever you notice, you will get more of. And if you're noticing opportunities, you'll get more opportunities. If you're noticing the obstacles, I'm not saying you ignore them, but if you're focusing on them solely, then you'll get more of those as well. And finally, it's okay to get excited. Your path to success is not always going to be logical. You're believing in achieving something you can't see yet. So thinking about it alone is not going to get you there. You have to find some tools and find some techniques and reshape some parts of your lives, which could be much more relevant to the future you want rather than the present you're in right now. Third thing is a very practical application, and that is success leaves clues, as the beautiful Tony Robbins says. The first thing you could do is, rather than worrying about what could go wrong, is look at people who are already shining in the area that you want to shine in and have a look at their story. See if you can find articles or interviews. They're not going to talk about an uninterrupted path to success, but they will talk about what kept them going when there were obstacles and roadblocks. And they will also leave some clues for you as to how they immersed themselves into the life they wanted to have, but just wasn't visible to themselves and others as yet. So please don't think I think thinking negatively is a good idea. I don't, but I just wanted to share this story with you because I think it's so powerful that make-believe isn't just for children. Make-believe and harnessing the power of your emotions is absolutely essential as an adult if you want to create your future rather than wait for some future to happen to you. Until next time.